Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. I am starting the stream early today. Let's see here. Yeah, usually I would like to stream after work, but um, I have a. I, don't hold me to this because things come out of nowhere, but hopefully tomorrow, scheduled to talk to Steve Godfrey on the topic of animals and antinatalism. He's been writing and making videos on the topic, particularly responding to a few people in the AN sphere. And I have a guest that's also going to join the discussion. I'm hoping that we can live stream it. I'm going to use a different software program. If I can't figure out the technicalities with setting it up, I hope I should be able to. But if I don't, we'll record it, or I'll just make a video commenting on our discussion. But hopefully it'll happen. So in preparation for that discussion tomorrow, I want to review some of the material that he's produced recently, and also to hash out some of my ideas about animals and antinatalism, to flesh that out, because through this discourse I've noticed some points that I haven't really considered before, and I actually appreciate the discourse. I don't like the personal stuff. I really wish that could be detached from this discussion, because regardless of the people being commented on, the topic itself has been discussed pre these people, right? And will happen afterwards as well, if they stop doing activism or whatever. So, I have a few notes here. I have my notepad open. The stream seems to be working. Hopefully the audio is okay. There's some maintenance in the hallway, so you may hear some background noise. I apologize for that. We're going to jump right into the recent video. No, this is his paper. Let's see here. So the latest video was posted on the 27th of November. It has 110 views. I noticed that he doesn't get that many views, and I suspect I'm going to do a little bit of a meta commentary here. I don't like apholism, and I don't like the drama involved in that. And I understand someone just recently made a video about people commenting on drama. I think so. I don't want to fall down that rabbit hole, but it's really hard to detach or extract the good stuff from all the insults or sardonic commentary of when people are criticizing one another. People have criticized me. But I'd rather people, if I'm wrong about something, that people educate me and not belittle me. And that's just a boundary that I'm going to have in terms of people engaging with me in this particular sphere and probably others. I used to just want to be like, doesn't matter how aggressive or insulting the person is. If the person points out a flaw in my reasoning, I thought it was useful. I no longer think that. I think that I'd rather wrestle with ideas on my own and be wrong, and have that space to wrestle with the ideas and find out that I'm wrong, or engage with someone who's willing to not insult me, and just talk about the ideas. And I prefer that as a method. I understand when it comes to YouTube and the internet, that's a little difficult. So I may change my position on that, because people who have made personal commentary on me in conjunction with their philosophical disagreements have pointed out some useful information that is great, but at the same time, again, just having to go through the personal attacks and then find the diamonds in the rough, so to speak, is really difficult, and it takes way too much cognitive energy. Maybe it's entertaining, but I find it very exhausting. So, as a prep for what we're going to do today, there are going to be probably comments about people within the antinatalist world. I may say a couple of things here and there, but I'm going to try not to get sidetracked on that, because I feel like I'm susceptible to that. So the main topic is animals included or excluded in antinatalism. And another meta thing that I'd like to talk about in spaces where it is included, I noticed that when people try to make arguments why it should be excluded, the conversations get a little heated. And then conversely, the other side, whenever there's spaces where animals, like in antinatalist groups where you're not allowed, you're not really allowed to talk about these things. It's aggressive on the other side. And I understand why these spaces exist, because you don't want to... Here's the weird thing, is that you want to foster a space that will be inclusive to, let's say you're a human-centric antinatalist. You don't want ideas that you feel that are muddying the waters to seep into the community, to sort of sway people to some extreme ends or dangerous ideas. And I'm very sympathetic towards that. At the same time, well, that's all I'll say. I'm sympathetic towards it. So I belong to both anthropocentric, sentiocentric spaces within this sphere on the internet. What I've done, and I think the philosophical pessimism server, I promote it a lot, is a good space. And it's one Discord that I'm more active in. I also have a Facebook group called, I don't even remember what it's called. I think it's Antinatalism, Academic Antinatalism Philosophy. And in that Facebook group, I call it a safe space for unsafe ideas, because I will allow academic papers and discussions related to the literature on antinatalism, people who are making arguments against antinatalism, which I don't think tends to be in other groups, where here's a paper arguing completely against the view. And then also animals, transhumanism, and ethics of extinction, and stuff related to all of that stuff, and related to that stuff, because I think you really do need to intellectually engage with this material to hash out what you agree and what you disagree, and then also have good reasons for that, either written or shared somewhere, so that new people that come in can figure out what do they believe, instead of just being like, here's this group, here's my view on antinatalism, you agree with it or get out. Which I think is disconcerting for new people involved, and who may be wrestling with the ideas themselves, which is why I think a more gentler approach to education would be what I would like to see. But that's just more of a comment. I don't think it'll happen. Screw it. All right. Let me stop wasting time and just get into the video here. Sorry about that. So the video is titled, Why does antinatalism exclude animals? ? This is the Ephilism YouTube channel. Steve, this has confused some people, even though your icon is Ephilism with the cross, like the stop sign. No, it's not stop sign. The anti sign on it. People have misattributed that without even viewing your content that you're an ethicist because your channel's called Ethilism. So it's slightly confusing. But maybe this is a way to get broader reach within antinatalism or ethilism spheres. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I just want to say that it has confused a couple of people. And even when I'm saying it, I'm like, hey, this video on this ethilism channel, by the way, this is an anti-ethilism channel. It's a little confusing, but I'm sure you thought about this before, but thought I'd comment on that. Anyway. It is 20 minutes long, so let's just get into it. All right. Hopefully the audio is going to be okay. All right.
Definition of antinatalism. I'd be curious about your reasoning and where you branch off from Benatar, in and of itself.
Okay, the audio seems to be okay. Fingers crossed. Originally posted on the 21st of December 2021. I remember this video being uploaded. I can't remember much of it. This upload adds some notes and a new ending. Cool. Keep in mind that the core concern of this discussion isn't actually whether or not animals are included in antinatalism. What? Keep in mind that the core concern of this discussion isn't actually whether or not animals are included in antinatalism. Okay, it's finding out how we differentiate between antinatalism and not antinatalism. Okay, well, crap. Because I was interested in the discussion on animals being included and not included, but as a meta, so to speak, on how we're navigating the theoretical ideas. That's fine. I'm down for that. So let's keep that in mind, or I'll keep that in mind. Okay, come on, go.
This question is from Andreas Moss. As I understand, you are of the opinion animals aren't considered under your definition of antinatalism. I'd be curious about your reasoning and where you branch off from Benatar and why. And finally, I assume that you're closer to Cabrera on this. Okay, I'm gonna...
Just some background. Andreas Moss is, well, I think that's his last name, was the main editor of the Antinatalism magazine that was started with Jiwoon Huang. I'm sorry for mispronouncing everybody's last name wrong. Anyway, just some background of who Andreas was or is. I haven't spoken to him for a while. Andreas, if you're around, I'm around too. Ping me. It would be nice to catch up.
Divide this question into these three sections, and I'll respond to each one in turn. As I understand, you are of the opinion animals aren't considered under your definition of antinatalism. I'd be curious about your reasoning. My definition of antinatalism reads as follows. The assertion that procreation is unconditionally unethical because it non-consensually exposes people to the inevitability of dukkha, absent purpose sub specie eternitatis. But all I need for present purposes is this abridged version. As you can see, I consider antinatalism not as a philosophical position.
Okay, so note 1, I assume, was not included in the original video. Okay. I increase the volume on this too. Okay. Note 1. This is poorly articulated. I actually didn't think it was. It would have been better if I had said something like, I consider antinatalism to be defined and encapsulated by a normative statement. Yeah, okay, that's fair. rather than a pessimistic evaluation. Ugh, I dislike this term evaluation. I don't know. Okay, it is what it is. I personally, I prefer descriptive. I think there's some justification in my nitpicking on that, but I can't really articulate that right now. Okay, I consider antinatalism to be defined and encapsulated by a normative statement rather than a pessimistic evaluation such as Bannatar's statement. Well, wait a minute. Which statement did he just say? Like, what?
Okay, I'm going to divide this question into these 3 sections, and I'll respond to each one in turn.
Bannatar makes a lot of statements, so I don't know which one he's referring to.
As I understand, you are of the opinion animals aren't considered under your definition of antinatalism. I'd be curious about your reasoning. My definition of antinatalism reads as follows. The assertion that procreation is
Okay, so this is it. I liked his definition. I don't know why. Anyway, antinatalism definition. The assertion that procreation is unconditionally unethical. Love that. I think, yeah, like that first right there is, I would not change that at all. And I don't know, I don't have my personal definition hashed out. It's somewhere in a chat somewhere. But anyway, the assertion that procreation is unconditionally unethical. Very good. I like that. There's one little thing that I would tweak with that possibly. But anyways, because it unconsensually exposes people to the inevitability of dukkha. I feel like I'm pronouncing that wrong. So dukkha is a Buddhist concept, I believe, and I might be completely wrong on this, but when I looked it up last time, it's a general view of, I don't even know how to, let's just say suffering, though it's much more nuanced and complicated, like much more nuanced than that. And it's, and he's saying absent purpose subspecies aeternitatis. So absent cosmic meaning in a way. I think I don't have, I could just simply Google it right now, but I've done that. And so essentially it's saying the assertion that procreation is unconditionally unethical, great, because it unconsensually exposes people to the inevitability of dukkha, absent subspecies aeternitatis. That seems like a great, definition. I am not convinced fully by the consent argument, but if in a weird metaphysical reality people were able to consent to coming into existence, that would, that would totally take away the idea of imposing this onto people, because they would be able to say, hey, you know what, I understand. It's going to bring me into existence with all these conditions. Bring me anyway. All right, fine. I wouldn't be, like, couldn't be against that. There'd probably be other reasons in that weird world, but anyway, I'm down for this definition.
Conditionally
but then he goes on
because it non-consensually exposes people to the inevitability of dukkha, absent purpose subspecies aeternitatis. But all I need for present purposes is this abridged version.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's keep it simple.
As you can see, I consider
all right. I guess that's just like,
not as
I think it's a bit harsh to say this is poorly articulated. I think it's good. But if you wanted to add a little bit more background or more nuance than the second thing about normative is fine.
With ethical implications, but as an ethical,
it also, I don't know how much you should really have to say that. Imagine making a moral claim and then saying, by the way, just to reiterate, this is a moral claim. That's what I feel like is happening. Like this definition is a normative statement. Going on further to say, by the way, this normative statement is a normative statement just seems a little much. But anyway,
principle in and of itself.
The clarification's nice.
Benatar's conclusion that coming into existence is always a serious harm doesn't define antinatalism for me. It's just that I see it as a stepping stone to...
So I agree with that. That's just a description of what's happening. Like this is a serious harm. Now you got to go further to say why it's unethical.
Towards the definition rather than the definition itself. In order to make it easier to follow my working, I'm restating the principle as an imperative to make the subject X explicit. It is unconditionally unethical for X.
This, I feel like, really needs to be more promoted. It's unconditionally unethical. I've been seeing some commentary in groups that are finding conditions where it's ethical, and I don't know. I don't engage with those things because I don't know where you're coming from. That doesn't seem like antinatalism to me, but whatever.
To procreate. From here, we need to clarify X and procreate. The only way the statement can make sense is for X to be a moral agent with capacity to refrain from...
So was this in the original video? Now... Okay, if this was in the original video, oh shit, my audio. That's great. So my antinatalism is restricted, or it's what I would, and I don't know if this is a good term to use, but it's agent relative. It's making, when I say something's ethical, or sometimes I'll mix it with moral, is that it's about what moral agents do. So the ethical sphere is about whether or not what this person's doing is ethical or not. So it's that distinction between moral agents and moral patients is very important. And I didn't know that was in the original video, but cool.
Procreation in accordance with an ethical imperative. To the best of our knowledge, only humans have this capacity. Therefore, X only includes humans and excludes animals.
Okay. Yeah. I'm, as long as we're saying X only includes humans and excludes animals. This is nitpicking. I would change this a little bit to say X only includes human animals and excludes non-human animals, because it's a weird thing to say, because humans are animals, right? And I know this is a nitpick, but just for clarity, this is like a small thing that I would probably change.
And therefore, antinatalism only includes humans and excludes animals.
So there I disagree. So here, I don't want to give away too many of my views right away, but I need to work this out while I'm reviewing this. So antinatalism is this ethical assertion, right? And you're going to prescribe this, or just say that this is what it is, to moral agents. Moral agents should not be procreating. However, now here's where I would change the definition a bit. This word here, procreate, I think is problematic. And bear with me. I think if you look at the scenario, if you break down procreation, what is the ethical issue with that? It's the creation ethic part. So if we just focus on creation ethics, it is unethical to create morally relevant persons, or morally relevant moral patients. And the distinction there, from my own understanding or clarity, is that moral patients don't necessarily have to be morally relevant persons. So I would add that distinction in there too. So I assume he's going to go down the road about like procreation is only applied to humans and not non-human animals. But this is where I would push back a bit, where I think the gist of what the problem is about moral agents generating new life or creating new sentient life into existence in a morally relevant way. But I think that there has some wiggle room. But anyway, let's go on.
So, straight out of the gate, we can already conclude that antinatalism only includes humans. We can therefore...
So, yes, I agree with this so far. And, anyway, yeah.
write the imperative as the assertion that it is unconditionally unethical for humans to procreate. Alright, let's move on. Procreate. Merriam-Webster defines to procreate as to beget or...
see, so now he's he's going down the procreation word. This is why I like engaging with his material, even though I just wish the personal stuff was not there. Anyway, okay. So I know I just said, like, number one, I'm okay with, but that's because of the caveat that I just added. Within the ethical assertion is the idea that there's a victim, or that might be a strong word, that there's a subject that moral agents are affecting. And that needs to be taken into account of the general idea of antinatalism and creation ethics, or, what we're going down here, procreation, if you really look at the nuance of what procreation is doing. Yeah, okay.
Bring forth offspring. The only way to interpret this without mutilating the language is that it refers to same-species reproduction.
Yes. Agreed. I think that limits, unjustifiably so, at the definition. And I remember Les Unite using the word I don't know if I agree with this term yet. I kind of like it. He uses the word co-create. And what I've been saying whenever I'm having these discussions is unethical to create into existence. Because Rivka Weinberg mentioned this issue of saying bringing into existence, like you're taking something from one state into another. And I think that confuses some things. So I've been using create into existence, and Les Unite says co-create. And I could already feel some people watching this video just rolling their eyes about this this nitpicking, but I think it's very important. And anyway, so I agree, but I think it has some problems with just using this.
There's no other way to read it. It would be nonsense to interpret this definition as saying humans begetting or bringing forth non-human offspring. Okay, so this confirms that antinatalism to interpret this definition as saying humans begetting or bringing forth non-human offspring. Okay, so this confirms that antinatalism is solely concerned with same-species reproduction.
Under this definition, yes. I would I would be I would question, I would push back a little bit on two. And well, I mean, two, specifically the word procreate. So I think that if we were to review the ethical problem of procreation, we could use a different word to say that the creation of morally relevant persons is what's unethical. And if that's so, the way that, before I go further, because some people ask me what my view on language and definition is, I just think that these are social constructs that we have for schools of ideas, and whatever the general agreement is and I do place a little higher elevation for what's in the literature, what's in the academic literature. If people are going to say antinatalism is just about procreation and not about the creation ethics of generating or creating morally relevant persons, then I would be happy to say that I'm not antinatalist anymore. What I would be in that case, don't know. maybe you can call me anti-creationism, but then that just goes down a bad thing with, because creationism is already a thing. I guess I would still be, if you look at the different anti-natalism, that would be a part of it. But from my own point of view, it's unethical for moral agents to be generating or creating morally relevant persons, and I think that's my point. I'm gonna bring that up tomorrow. So,
And I've got one more reason to round out a trifecta. Although antinatalism is a newly minted term, there is what might be loosely referred to as the antinatalism canon. Ken Coates and Katerina Lochmanova's books are probably the best resources for anyone interested in exploring this. One constant down through the millennia.
I'd also add Masahiro Morioka's paper on the definition and history of antinatalism. I forgot the title of the paper, but just look up Masahiro Morioka. It gives a lot. You could either be fascinated by that paper or incredibly frustrated, because there's so many variations of antinatalism that, in my opinion, it kind of muddies the water and confuses a lot of people. But and here's my view, is that I'm not like a purist per se. If you use it differently, then I'll just simply say that I disagree with your definition. I use a different definition, and whatever conversation we're having will just continue forward from our whatever we're defining. But I think it is a problem for antinatalism as I don't even know what to call it, maybe a social movement, where you have so many different definitions that people are using on the internet that I don't even know how. Like, I just think that's a problem. Because if I say, hey, and then there are people that say this, antinatalism implies promortalism, and there are people that say that. You're just misrepresenting people that don't agree with that. And I don't know, just a problem. Don't know what to do about it. Anyway.
At least as far as I can tell, has been the presumption that the idea is restricted to human procreation. Now, of course, I may...
Okay, there's a thing scrolling on the bottom, and I was not paying attention to that. Nitpick to Steve. I find that if you're going to make a note, doing that scrolling thing was a little hard to catch. Like, I almost forgot.
There is what might be loosely referred to as the
And the thing is, if I pause it, I can't read it because it's just a scroll. Anyway,
antinatalism canon.
Let's read it.
Ken Coates and Katerina Lochmanova's books are probably the best resources.
I'm going to mute it so I can just read the note. Note 2. This is where things get murky. We need to guard against retconning? That's a new word for me. Retcon. Revise. Retrospectively. Okay. Philosophical pessimism with the antinatalism label. Okay. When it comes to determining what is and isn't antinatalism, I prefer proceeding with caution. Yeah, I hope the other notes are not like this. It's really hard to read. And it's so... Okay, anyway. Proceed with caution, looking for meaningful definitions with limiting principles, rather than working backwards trying to shoehorn prefabricated ideologies into antinatalism. All right. I don't like the way that note was. Okay, so now let's go back to the video.
Probably the best resources for anyone interested in exploring this. One constant down through the millennia, at least as far as I can tell, has been the presumption that the idea is restricted to human procreation. Now, of course, I may be incorrect on this because I can't claim to have read every single thing ever written on the subject. There might very well be examples where the ethics of animals being brought into existence.
So, Karima Kurma? Hold on. Like,
Minogue's
how far
books are
back
probably
does
the
he
best
say?
resources for anyone interested in exploring this. One constant down through the millennia, at least as far as I can tell, has been the presumption that the idea is restricted to human procreation.
I think Karima Kurma would disagree with that, I think. And I don't know what time scale he's using here.
Now, of course, I may be incorrect on this because I can't claim to have read every single thing ever written on the subject. There might very well be examples where the ethics of animals being brought into existence was discussed under the antinatalism rubric. I am confident, however, that in the broader context of the millennia-long discourse, examples will be both rare and recent exceptions, proving...
Yes, I think I would agree. I haven't read everything either. But I would be comfortable saying that probably this is a more recent thing.
Rather than displacing the rule. Confident, however, that in the broader context of the millennia-long discourse, examples will be both rare and recent exceptions, proving rather than displacing the rule.
Okay.
I'm not saying antinatalism has to only include humans because that's how it's always been. What I'm saying is that there's a rebuttable presumption of human exclusivity that stands until demonstrated otherwise. So, this is why I exclude animals from antinatalism. It boils down to nothing more than rudimentary syntactic analysis and giving weight to the idea's historicity. I don't have...
That's fair. I guess my only contention is what I said before about the procreation part. I think if we evaluated the problematic nature of what that means, that we could have a that could be I don't know, that would open up some things, but it would be restricted to moral agents doing these things. So I think that is where I'm not in agreement with the other Sintu-centric antinatalists, or like at least some of them. Like, again, this is not really talked about in this detail, and I think it should be. Anyways, I see where Steve's coming from, and I see my point of contention, so this is good.
Any hidden agenda for not wanting to include animals, and neither do I think animal procreation or animal suffering are beyond the scope of ethical consideration. I don't have any preference either wanting to include animals more than rudimentary syntactic analysis and giving weight to the idea's historicity. I don't have any hidden agenda for not wanting to include animals, and neither do I think animal procreation or animal suffering are beyond the scope of ethical consideration. I don't have any preference either way if animals are included or not. My point is very simply that if you define antinatalism as the assertion that procreation is unconditionally unethical, you have to exclude animals, no matter how desperately you want them to be included.
That seems to follow. Yeah. Okay.
I can't see the controversy.
In as few words as possible, explain
Oh no, there's more scrolling. All right.
Antinatalism.
Antinatalism is the belief that it is unethical to have children because children...
Okay, this is where I dislike where this is going, because now we're talking about Amanda, and Amanda's not an academic. She's not... Sorry, they are not... they're well... Like, they've been around... like antinatalism for a very long time and has good knowledge of it, but using an advocate of a philosophy to talk about a philosophy, I think now you're getting into the world of just attacking people and not the philosophy. At the same time, there are people that are asserting that animals are included, and therefore you want to, I don't know, use the examples of this. And I think Amanda Lawrence, Tejas, and myself are perfect examples to highlight about that. I don't know what videos I've created on this topic. It's probably sprinkled throughout interviews and so forth, but I hope that clarifies some of my own views. And this is definitely different than Tejas, Lawrence, and Amanda about the moral agency part. That to me is very important. Anyway, we'll see where this goes.
Are essentially biological experiments that you cannot control. The only thing you can basically guarantee a child.
So, okay. So the note said it. Amanda Sukanik's own definition necessarily excludes animals.
The only thing you can basically guarantee a child will have is suffering and death.
Okay, so I have a problem with using this as citing your source because it's old. Like, first of all, we all know Amanda includes animals into their definition. So maybe if it's like if it's saying beyond antinatalism, I'm going to include animals into the evaluation part, maybe a case can be made. My only thing about this is that it's such an old source that maybe Amanda's views of the definition has changed, and a more recent definition that's espoused could be used as an example. Because like if you look 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the way that I define antinatalism probably is not what I believe now. But anyways, that's all I have to say about this. But yes, according to this clip from, shoot, I don't even remember when this was made. I think 3 years ago, maybe. Yeah, fine. That specific definition articulated in this particular TV segment does exclude animals. I think Amanda has probably, I would guess, had a different definition over the past 3 years that now includes it. I don't have a source for that. It's just a general vibe from multiple conversations on the topic that I think Amanda would include it. But anyway.
Completely sold. Unethical to have children.
If you want to include animals, you need...
And by the way, I have another nitpick on that. Like, having children's okay. It's the creation of children that's a different thing. And that's something that another thing that I want to nitpick on is antinatalists or the philosophy of antinatalism should not be saying having a child is bad. There are multiple ways of having children. You can adopt, and you technically have a child now, and you technically are a parent now. You're not a biological parent, and you didn't create the person into existence, but you are a parent now, and you do have a child now. So anyways, another nitpick, but I actually feel like it's an important one. Anyway, okay.
I can't see the controversy.
In as few words as possible, explain to me antinatalism.
Antinatalism is the belief that it is unethical to have children because children are essentially biological experiments that are essential. Antinatalism is the belief that it is unethical to have children because children are essentially biological experiments that you cannot control. The only thing you can basically guarantee.
And colloquially, I'm pretty sure everybody assumed that meant like procreation.
A child will have is suffering and death.
Sold. Completely sold. Unethical to have children.
If you want to include animals, you need a different definition. And this is where...
Agreed, yeah. So far I'm in agreement. I agree with him.
We go back to Benatar's conclusion that coming into existence is always a serious harm. At the beginning of this video, I said that I consider Benatar's conclusion to be a stepping stone pointing towards an ethical principle.
Yes. So unfortunately, the book is a lot about evaluating descriptive reality in a philosophical pessimist way, and then highlights some logical problems with procreation asymmetry and duty asymmetry when it comes to that. I actually can't remember how he connects his argument about coming into existence to the conclusion. I should look into that before tomorrow. But even if he doesn't, like, I don't care. Like, I'm in agreement with the definition with that one little issue. And like, I'm not beholden onto whatever Benatar says, but whatever.
However, that doesn't mean the principle I arrived at is the only possibility. So let's play around with the idea and see where things take us. Coming into existence is always a serious harm. This can be morphed into the
Note 3. Oh, Steve, the notes, man, I can't read like that because I'm trying to pay attention to the video and then the notes just scroll. Anyway, whatever.
Principle that it's unethical to bring.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the note first and then continue the video on volume because I can't do both. I can't focus on the video and focus on the note at the same time. Sorry, this is the way I operate. Note 3. I don't mean we can jump directly from Benatar's evaluation to a normative, and again, this whole evaluative, normative, whatever, evaluation to a normative claim. Only that Benatar's evaluation can be used as part of an argument to arrive at a normative claim. Okay, yeah, I agree with that so far. All right, this is unfortunate that I think most of the notes are going to be like this, but...
Coming into existence is always a serious harm. This can be morphed into the broad principle that it's unethical to bring into existence. Note that I didn't include the term unconditionally. This is because Benatar's assertion isn't sufficient on its own to conclude unconditionality. My definition includes unconditionality because of the impossibility of consent, which is beyond the scope of Benatar's statement. Righto. Just like my definition, let's consider this in terms of a negative duty, to refrain from bringing into existence. It goes without saying that humans are going to be the first category. But what other entities might fall within the scope of this negative duty? Consumption animals. And what about...
So I think he's going to continue to go on about the relevance of moral agency to say something's unethical.
Artificial intelligence with capacity for suffering. How about de-extinction, bringing back extinct species using preserved DNA?
Oof, I just checked the viewer count. Hello, everyone. I didn't know there was people watching, honestly, or that amount of people. Say hi if you're around. Great to see everyone. If I don't know when people joined the stream, but I mean, I guess the screen says what I'm doing. I'm reviewing Steve's latest video on animals and antinatalism, and we're going to have a discussion tomorrow, so I'm just prepping for that. But hey, everyone.
Now, of course, this isn't meant as any kind of exhaustive list, but it's safe to proceed on the basis that we're focused on entities with capacity for suffering. We can take that as read. Hopefully, it's becoming clear that we have a problem accommodating all these entities within the definition as it currently stands. Consumption animals, artificial intelligence, and de-extinction are all beyond the scope of human procreation.
Another nitpick I would say is like like calling it consumption animal seems whatever. That's just a nitpick on that's not really relevant. I'm gonna skirt by that. I just maybe domesticated non-human animals that we consume. I don't know.
We're therefore confronted,
and not everybody consumes them anyway,
with a few choices. Do we expand the meaning of procreate?
Yes. So this is going to be my argument if I ever make a formalized argument, but anyway.
Do we create a new antinatalism definition?
When it comes to creation ethics, I would just create a new term if this is not what antinatalism is.
Do we create a new antinatalism subcategory?
I don't know about that.
Or do we create a whole new category entirely separate from antinatalism? But one thing we can't do, we can't use this definition of antinatalism and include non-human entities.
Agreed. So that's if you accept this specific definition. Yeah. I'm agreeing with him so far. Again, if you accept this definition.
That's not possible. So, how about we change the definition? What about something like the assertion that it is unethical for humans to bring entities with potential capacity for suffering into existence?
I don't know if I like that wording, but I think I get the gist of what's being laid down here.
I've included potential in brackets to account for artificial intelligence. Notwithstanding the incredible advances we've already made, AI is still nascent.
What is it? Transhuman right? Kitties. Okay.
Technology. And it's anyone's guess as to how far we'll end up going with it. We don't yet know if we'll end up creating AI with capacity for suffering. For all we know, we might never progress beyond creating the capacity for simulating suffering to the extent humans can't tell the difference. But aside from all that, it's clear that these two definitions are not defining the same thing.
Agreed.
If they aren't defining the same thing, then it isn't unreasonable to argue that they can't use the same label.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think I agree with him so far. So this is like a war of definitions, so to speak.
Maybe one way to think about it is a color palette where green gradually turns into red.
Okay, here's another note. I'm going to mute it, read the note, then play it again. My point still stands. Wait, my point still. And the thing is, like, when I pause, I can't even see it that well. Hold on. Yeah, even if I put it back into the player, I can't really see your note, Steve, because of the controls, and there's no way to hide the controls. I don't want to make you... I don't want to, like, do more work to recreate the video, but if you have the time and energy, I would suggest it would be helpful, especially for people that are going to dissect this video, I think, because right now I'm struggling with it. All right, so let me, because I can't see the note. Okay, oh, there it is. But then as soon as I start playing it, the controls will pop up. My point still stands with regards to green antinatalism gradually turning into red non-antinatalism. Okay, great. If I use my space bar, I can see it. But I'm no longer as certain about the specific example I use here. Okay. Oh. I thought okay. What the heck? Am I not playing it?
Label.
Shoot. Come on.
Maybe one way to think about it is a color palette where green gradually turns into red. At some point along that spectrum, green ceases to be green. My position is very simply that this new statement is far enough along the spectrum that it ceases to be antinatalism.
Possibly. Israel or Palestine? Oh, I'm not going to comment on that.
All right, one final
Just trying to focus on this right now. Sorry.
category: wild animals. Not only are wild animals well beyond the scope of human procreation, we're now dealing with a positive duty.
Yes. And to go further, I'm going to say this positive duty tends to be inserted because of our normative differences in ethics. So deontologists and the consequentialists, like consequentially, I think that they will assert that you do have a positive duty, and then non-consequentialists will say you don't have that positive duty. So I think this goes a little beyond the antinatalism thing, but which is why I'm less assertive in trying to say what it should and shouldn't be, because there obviously is a normative ethics divide within antinatalism communities that if I start to debate or have discussions on that, it's like, well, now I'm just debating normative ethics. I'm not really debating the applied or practical ethics at that point. And honestly, if you're a consequentialist, so be it. I have my criticisms of it, but it fine, you hold that belief. But then I don't know how to argue with a certain view of, like, rural utilitarian probably could say you wouldn't have a positive duty, maybe. But when it comes to their critique of, or the difference between allowing harm versus preventing harm, I think it gets a little messy here.
Taking things far beyond the reach of the original definition. My position is that the only positive obligations anyone can be bound by are obligations they deliberately and voluntarily agree to. For example,
I don't even know if that's true or not, but okay, I'll take it at face value.
People who have children deliberately and voluntarily take on positive obligations towards their children. I also reject outright that...
Anyways, I see where he's going here. I gotta take a quick look at positive duties. Do we have a moral obligation to benefit others without agreeing to it? I'm just gonna make a note of that, something I gotta reflect on. I don't know what my view is on that. Just a quick comment, I guess. When it comes to this particular topic, I would say that it's supererogatory, intervening. So it goes beyond duty. It's just like, it's a good thing if you can practically help wild animals, but it's not an obligation in the extent of saying that being constrained to a duty type ethics.
Anyone has any obligation to intervene in any problem they had no hand in creating.
Or a deontic one.
So as far as I'm concerned, positive obligations towards wild animals is a non-starter. It doesn't even get out of the gate. Let's consider what Lawrence Anton said in his discussion with Mark Maharaj and Les Unite.
Oh, hey, I got a mention. And I think you said my name right. A weird... okay, I'm going to nitpick a little bit too. I've noticed that some people add my channel or my my name into their description. So there's a lot of Mark Maharajas out there into the world. And maybe obviously not a lot in the antinatalism world, but if people could... You know what? I have a preference. I'm not... anyways, if people could say Mark and then my middle initial J, so Mark J Maharaj, I think that would be helpful because, again, there's a ton of Mark Maharajas out there. It's just a common name. Like, but anyway. Okay.
Get out of the gate. Let's consider what Lawrence...
I shouldn't even be freaking using my freaking name anyway. It's over with now. Like, I've already opened that can of worms, and I regret it, by the way. If I could have used an alias or a handle, you think I would have known better. It was a dumb move. I regret it, but it is what it is. So.
Anton said in his discussion with Mark Maharaj and Les Unite.
Let's say we roll the clock back a few hundred years and we, maybe even 1,000 years, and we get to the point.
Someone in chat says, what else there to do except fixing suffering? So you could say that it's a good thing, but do we have a moral obligation or a moral duty to do that thing? I think that's the point of contention here, from a consequentialist point of view and a deontic point of view. And I think this is where, yeah.
Let's consider what Lawrence Anton said in his discussion with Mark Maharaj and Les Unite.
Let's say we roll the clock back a few hundred years and we, maybe even 1,000 years, and we get to the point where, we're in a world where we're not as interconnected as we are today.
And if you look into discussions in normative ethics, there is discussions about allowing harm and doing harm. So I would recommend people delve into that if they're curious about why there's this division.
And so it may be very likely that, if one civilization sets sails to a faraway land, they come across another civilization that they've never interacted with before, and they.
Let's see. No other intelligence except us to fix that animal suffering. Agreed. That's the current state right now, but you need an argument to say that you now have a positive duty to intervene. That needs to be demonstrated, even if it's the case that we are the only ones that could, quote unquote, fix animal suffering. How are you arguing or justifying or reasoning towards a positive duty? And maybe it could be framed in a way of calling it positive duties instead of saying, because the way this is discussed sounds like people who don't want to, or people who are arguing in this fashion, they don't care about animals. And I think that that's a problem. I think people do care about animals, but what they're saying is that if you do intervene, certain things can be good for humans, wild animal suffering, the environment, so forth. But this is going beyond the definition of antinatalism, where you're going on with the descriptive reality of it's a harm, or even if it's a serious harm of coming into existence, to the ethical definition of saying it's unethical unconditionally to procreate. If you strictly go with that definition, it's really hard to extrapolate to that to positive duties. And I think this is where the gist of the discourse is going. Suffering is the most valuable thing. We care about suffering, so we should. Oh. I don't know how to comment on that. So you're making an assertion: suffering is the most valuable thing. So just that statement right there, if you isolate that, you're asserting a value statement that's not universally held. And it also insinuates a type of normative ethics theory of negative utilitarianism. Not everybody's a negative utilitarian. Now you have to defend negative utilitarianism. And see, this is where I feel like there's a problem here. The question should be, why not? They are the ones bringing that. The question should be, why not? They are the ones bringing that. So are you saying that why the burden of proof is on the person saying that there is no positive duty? Yep, it's the only important event happening on the planet. I don't know what you mean by event. I feel like there may be a language barrier here. I'm suspecting. But anyway, if you're going to shift the burden of proof, I'm not exactly comfortable with that, because anybody who's saying that something, putting forth an argument, should clarify or show reasons to justify their what they're asserting. So if you say we do have this positive duty, then it's on you to demonstrate or to articulate how you have that positive duty. I can't explain suffering to a robot. Now, the thing is, I feel like that's a little bit of a jab, and I'm just trying to lay out what's it called? The philosophical field of battle, so to speak. It's ironic to say that the other side would be a robot, because when you look at utilitarianism, it's pretty much taking a calculator and saying this is how you talk about morality, by reducing suffering, maximizing happiness, or whatever. You're a moral calculator, and I'd be careful calling people that. By the way, so
have no hand in how that civilization is in its current state. Now, if I set sail from my civilization and I have, I have food, I have water, I have all these things, and I come across another civilization that has been going through an extremely bad drought over the past season. I've never seen these people before. I've never interacted with them. I've never even been within 2,000 miles of them. But I come across them, and their children are dying. They are suffering. They're becoming malnourished.
See chat. Well, if they aren't a robot, okay, these are humans. You're just, now you're being intellectually dishonest, and I'm about to kick you. Well, if they aren't a robot, they should understand that's a something event. Okay. I'm going to be charitable and assume that there's a language barrier here, because I don't understand what you're saying, and it's kind of distracting. But anyway, thanks for the view. And I apologize if my patience is getting... This has been happening lately. Whenever I'm engaging in the antinatalism world or the philosophy, I'm like trying to stay focused on the philosophy, and then there's like side comments that happen. Maybe I should not be a live streamer. But anyway, okay, let me... the last part of your statement saying, they should understand that's a something event. You can claim the event of suffering happens. Now you have to demonstrate which under the constraints of duties, how are you articulating, how are you figuring out positive and negative duties? And that's all I'm saying, is that it needs to be explained. You can't just say, hey, there's suffering there, stop it. There's difference between saying that if you intervene, you're doing a good, versus you have an obligation now to do that intervening. That's all I'm saying. And that's actually what's in the philosophy literature. If you engage in the philosophy literature, if you don't like philosophy, don't come to a philosophy channel, honestly. I just, and if I'm being a little irritable, I don't know you. I just notice a lot of people who don't like philosophy tend to come on this channel, and I don't get it. I have it really explicitly in the channel name. I think it's language barrier. Yeah. Virtual vegan. I'm well aware of that. It's just engaging for many, many years in the antinatalism world. I could sort of feel, and this is not charitable, and I'm trying my best to be patient with that. I just noticed that not a lot of people engage with the literature in either philosophy or the philosophy of antinatalism, and they make assertions, they make positive claims, they say you have to define antinatalism this way, you have to have moral duties, moral obligations, and it's like you're not even engaging with the discourse on a philosophical level. And if you're not going to do that, you can do that in terms of just talking to, I don't know, if you're trying to say we should get involved in wild animal suffering, then go into the effective altruism movement. They talk about intervening in wild animal suffering, and they don't even argue that much about the moral impetus to intervene in that. So like the world of antinatalism is focused on, in my opinion, creation ethics, not necessarily, there's a barrier there that has to be extrapolated on, and it could be arguments and like this could be made. And I remember reading Viting, but even he's kind of going with the assumption that you agree that we have a duty to intervene. Anyway, I'm getting freaking sidetracked now. Virtual vegan. By the way, hi virtual vegan. How are you? It's Are you? What are you up to? I'm doing this before work because if I do this after work, I'm just going to be too tired. And anyways, hope you're well. I think when it comes to the chat, maybe engage a bit, but not fully. I know, I get distracted. When it comes to this person giving you like shotgun arguments, I would just invite to Discord or something. Yes. And I think this is why Avi and Ask Yourself and that whole world is like, you know what? I'm not going to engage through text ad nauseum. Come on chat and let's talk. And you know what? I used to get annoyed by that because I like to type. Because if I talk on voice, as you can tell, I'm fumbling, right? It's hard to talk on voice when you fumble so much. So I think text is nice you can quote people, but I completely sympathize with why people do that now. And anyway, see, even right now, the meta conversation is distracting me. You can't demonstrate. It's all right in front of them. Okay. Again, I know there's a language thing. What I mean by demonstrate is have a formalized argument so they can witness suffering, but you need a formalized argument to put forth the conclusion. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I'm going to go back a little bit on that. I don't think it needs to be formalized, but you need to have a semblance of an argument, at the very least. Are you trolling? No, I don't think the person's trolling. I think there's a language issue, and I think we're coming at this from different philosophies. So anyway, I'm getting distracted. Have fun in chat. Let me focus on this.
Do I not now have a duty to share my resources with them and help them as much as I can? Because I feel like that is the analogy with nature, is that, even though there were other species that, even though there are wild animals that, evolved along with us, there are many ways they suffer that we have no hand in. We didn't cause it.
Right.
But, now that we do see it and we are aware of it and we see it and we have somewhat of a capacity, or we can develop a capacity to help them, should we...
This is essentially like effective altruism promotion. I actually don't know what I said in this conversation, but anyway.
Not do that, just like if we found another human civilization that was suffering, we should help them.
Lawrence believes that an obligation to intervene is derived from being aware of a problem and...
Okay. See, this is why I like engaging with Steve's material, because literally my little side tangent that I had with chat, he's going to explain right now. So, fuck. I should have just let the video play and I didn't have to explain this. But yeah, I think he's going to go down the same line of reasoning that I had in chat with this side commentary thing, which is good. So let's go down this road.
Being in a position to do something about it.
He'll probably articulate it way better than me.
Lawrence is wrong. What he's doing is generalizing his own personal arbitrary preferences into universal duties. Now, if he wants to deliberately and voluntarily take on positive obligations, that's fine. But that doesn't make anyone else obligated. It's impossible for anyone to remedy...
So, I might be wrong on this. I think in the literature it's called like the demandedness objection. I'll have to look that up, making a note of that. So I'm pretty sure it's called the demandedness objection, and I am not too sure if it just means to the extent that we should have positive duties, or whether it demands too much to even have that positive duty. But anyways, that's something to keep a note of.
Every case of harm they encounter or become aware of. You know, I mean, do I have a duty to intervene when the guy 3 doors down gets in arrears on his mortgage after being made redundant? Or let's up the ante. Do I have a duty to intervene when I see a parent slap their toddler in the face in the middle of a shopping mall?
I don't know if you're allowed that on YouTube.
Think very carefully before answering these kinds.
Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed that on YouTube. Shoot. Anyway.
Of questions. Don't make the mistake of transforming personal revulsion into universal obligation. That's not how this works.
Here, Steve. I think they think that's how it works, and I'm sympathetic towards it, on an emotional level at least, because whenever I have these discussions, people are like, Mark, look at the vast amount of suffering. We have to save this. We have to fix this. Bruh. The majority of time that we've intervened has caused so much suffering already. So the fact that you think we're some type of like messiah on this earth is just, that's another thing. But that aside, I kind of understand where they're coming from, philosophy aside. You see a lot of suffering going on in the world. How can you not intervene and not help poor people out, you know? And by poor people, I mean like poor animals out, you know? They're just help the little, you know, help the animals. I get it. And I think maybe a way to soften this is saying that intervening is a good thing. It's a supererogatory thing. Good. And of course, I want to be very clear before I get categorized into the F-list world. I meant very, very small practical things. Like there was a program here where they would spread rabies, like not vaccine. It was like medicine to prevent rabies in the population, in wild animals. You pretty much just give a little bit of food, spread it out into the wild, and then the spread of rabies diminishes. That seems to be like a good thing for both humans and non-human animals. Seems fine. Seems good. All right. So things like that. That's what I'm talking about. But to go from something's good to it's a obligation, it's a duty, that's the issue here. Well, not the issue. That's just one of the issues. Anyway.
That's not how any of this works. Life Sucks made the same error in the Aphorism panel discussion. He referred to the so-called burden of intelligence.
You know, I don't know if you actually watched the full video, Steve, but if you did, kudos. These are long-ass conversations. Like that Aphorism panel was maybe 3.5 hours long, maybe longer. All right.
That Gary relies on to justify an obligation to bring about extinction. Life Sucks made the same error in the Aphorism panel discussion. He referred to the so-called burden of intelligence that Gary relies on. Also,
I think you misspelled his name. Hold on, I gotta check that out. I don't even know if Steve's gonna watch this, but if you do, well, I'll just make a note of it so that I can bring it up. So Life Sucks. Am I still Antinatalism? Sometimes finding his channels a bit. Okay, so Life Sucks. Yeah, Steve, if you look in your description, you misspelled his name. I don't know if it was intentional or if it was like a joke, but just a small correction. Or did I misspell it and you're just copying from what my description said? No, I think I have it fine. Okay, anyway. Small nitpick, but I know I really appreciate you citing your sources, and I tend to check your sources because it's very helpful for everything. Anyways,
to justify an obligation to bring about extinction.
Yeah, I know you might want to talk about this later, but it's a concept I think is really core to Aphorism as well.
Okay, let me catch up with chat. Where are we? No, good luck proving them that. Oh, look, there's something bleeding. Should we call ambulance? Why should we do something? Well, he used an example, and maybe he could have used a different example. So, like, we're doing. I don't want to get too distracted. There, right now, that's actually happening right now, right? So, are you saying that only if you see it, then we should do something, or are you saying that we should do it right now? Because you're not doing it right now. You're watching me live stream while there are people dying and in war right now, right? I think you asked me about the war. Go help them. Why are you like the positive duty is to go and help when so the way that Steve was talking about is if someone forecloses on their home, do I now have an obligation to pay their mortgage or something like that? That's one of the nuance of this thing. Listen, I think Steve. I don't want to speak on behalf of him, but if he was like, okay, I have my neighbor is someone I know, they're gonna be evicted. It would be good. It would be ethical. It would be morally good to pay the rent or pay the mortgage or whatever. But now it's a different thing to say, now you're obligated. Now you have a duty for it. Okay, I'm going to stop harping on this. It's as if someone's standing there dumbfounded while there's body bleeding on sidewalk. Like, gee, what I do then? No. It's saying... All right, I've said what I had to say on that. I hope you really got to... If you're trying to understand someone else's point of view, even a point of view that you disagree with, you got to really, I don't know, hold back on. I don't know. I feel like there's a certain bias here on this. So the way that, like, I disagree with Efilism, but the way that I engaged in a good faith way is to try to steel man their point of view as best as I could, and I disagree with pro-mortalism as well. But I feel like you got to steel man your interlocutor's point of view as best as you can so that you can engage with them on a decent level. LOL, damn. What vid was that from? Okay, so this video is from the Efilism panel on my channel, and then the video beforehand was a discussion with Les Unite from the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement and myself and Lawrence. Now, I don't remember if it's hosted on Lawrence's channel or mine. If you go to this video that Steve uploaded, you know what? I'll put that. Oh my god, I'll put a link in chat so that people can watch it, or at least check the description. So if you look at the description, he cites all his sources, which again, highly appreciate Steve. I need to do a better job of that myself. So if I click on the link, oh, it actually is on my channel. All right. If anybody clicks on like the sources, I haven't seen a spike in my viewership or my subscription count, so I don't think people check the description field of videos. But anyway, if you're looking for it, it's there. And thanks for thanks for citing it. Still catching up with chat. Hi chat. Hi everybody. There's a lot of viewers here. Now I'm starting to get nervous. Damn. Hi everybody. I'm excited at the same time. It's been a while. I used to love live streaming. And one thing I want to say about the live streaming thing, if you have ADHD, it's kind of like body doubling, where it kind of forces me to really be productive with my reviews and stuff like that, instead of just doing it on my own. But at the same time, obviously, I get easily distracted. So anyway, okay, where are we? What vid was that from? Yeah, check the description. I posted the link in chat. It's both videos are from my channel. So, anyways, thanks. Lenny. Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hi, Lenny. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Virtual vegan. Ah, yeah, they like airdropped it. Huh? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The rabies vaccines. Yeah, the rabies tablets or medicine. Yeah, they just airdropped it, and I would very much like to find out. You know what? I'm gonna make a note of that because I like that example, and it's a real example because I had a friend who works in like this environmental program. Look into the source for rabies wild animal suffering program. It's not called that. I'm just making a note for myself. I guess I could just say theoretically this would be a supererogatory act. I don't necessarily need to find the case, but you know what? There's probably other interventions to help the environment, help other animals that I could use, and I think it'll help the discussion. Okay. Let's see. That's how you know at least Steve ain't got a kid. I think I'm late on that comment. I don't know what that's referring to. Lenny, come to think of it, your Ephilism panel discussion might actually be the single most useful and revealing resource on antinatalism. Thank you, Lenny. I'm going to agree. Because it was like a deep dive into inquiring into a philosophy on a theoretical, even practical level, and I think it was just revealing. And you know what? It got a lot of views, but I don't think it was talked about that much, which is sad. Because if you're an ethicist, why wouldn't you make videos or comment saying, "Oh, I completely disagree with this," or how it was portrayed? I think the hard part is if you are an ethicist and you have, I think I had 4 of the prominent ethicists just questioning what they believe. As soon as you're like, I disagree with it, it's like, well, now you're arguing against some of the figureheads in Ephilism and probably indirectly arguing against Gary, and I guess that puts you in a weird position. But there wasn't that much commentary afterwards. Oh no. I just saw my frame rate and it looks like I'm bugging out. All right. So I don't know what to do about that. Okay, so my internet's back. Oh no, I'm seeing that I'm not having a stable internet connection, so I apologize if some of my comments are just, I don't know what it looks like from your end. Maybe I'm actually in the army. I don't know what. Oh, about the war comment. Right. Yeah, maybe you are. But then if you're in the army, why aren't you helping in another country? And then, so my point wasn't that an appeal to hypocrisy. The point that I was trying to make is that where do you determine your positive duties and your moral obligations, and how do you differentiate between that? That's what I was trying to highlight, is that, well, now that you're in the army, but there's people being evicted here in my city. Why aren't you helping them? And again, not to say the hypocrisy. What I'm trying to point out is, where do you get, you could be doing a good thing, but where do you get the positive duty part is how you hash that out. They're just asking, why should we reduce suffering? Like, what's there to get? Ugh, okay, well, doesn't matter. I was just asking about the toddler. What? I don't think you asked about a toddler. Or like someone bleeding out. Anyway, I've said a lot about that. Let's get back into the video. Thank you everyone for chatting, and great to see you, Lenny. Great to see you, Virtual Vegan. And you know what? And thank you, Transhuman Rot, for bringing this up, because obviously this is a point of contention and why the video is commenting on it. I apologize if I come across like I'm, I don't know, a little irritable, because there is no 10 of me. Okay, don't get it. Oh, okay. So you're saying like, because you can't do everything all at once. All right, fair enough. Okay.
What Emendum calls the burden of intelligence. which equals a responsibility, like an intrinsic responsibility we have to help not just humans, but all of the animals, all the sentient animals.
This is what Daniel Dennett calls a deepity. It's a statement that appears profound, but on closer inspection is actually trivial and meaningless. Burden of intelligence is just a
Let's see here. Really, from Lenny, really rare to see good faith engagement with bad philosophy. Yeah. I think it's a muscle to flex. And I don't mean show off. I meant a skill to engage with. And it's a philosophical principle that I try to engage with as much as possible, because if you actually ask me my emotional opinion on things, great, I see the internet still bugging out. I'm going to wait until it's back again. I don't know what to do about this. Let me close this and see if I close a few windows, maybe that'll help. Yeah, let me close this. All right, hopefully this helps my internet connection. So when it goes to like good faith engagement, it's like even steel manning positions that you completely disagree with. Like some views I completely like emotionally think is repulsive, but still needs to be engaged with. For example, pro-mortalism is a perfect example. Like I was struggling with the debate with Lawrence and those two Pollyanna pro-natalists because of their positive views on the philosophy of death. But those views exist, and those arguments exist, and it's important to be able to engage with that. But it does test a person. So anything that's to do with animals, ephilism, ? No, I didn't say that. And I don't think anybody's saying that. You don't have to be an ethicist to take into moral consideration animals. You could be an antinatalist and a vegan, but these are not addressing the definition of antinatalism, which this video is about. It's about what do we say is and isn't the definition of antinatalism. Explain what's so bad about reducing animal suffering. Okay, let's go into this. Oh wait, I can just use this window instead. One sec. Close. Should I use this? Nah.
fancy way of saying can implies ought. No, it doesn't. Capacity for doing something does not automatically lead to any duty to do it. Also keep in mind that we're all non-voluntary members of the human species. Not one of us deliberately and voluntarily agreed or consented to being burdened with human traits. And this means that obligations can't be derived from them.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The sentient animals.
This is what Daniel Dennett calls a deepity.
Well, let me hear
It's
what
a
Life
deity.
Sucks said again.
Do I have a duty to intervene when I see a parent
No. I don't want to see this.
carefully before answering these kinds of questions? Don't make the mistake of transforming personal revulsion into universal obligation. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Life Sucks made the same error in the Ephilism panel discussion. He referred to the so-called burden of intelligence that Gary relies on to justify an obligation to bring about extinction.
Yeah, I know you might want to talk about this later, but it's a concept I think is really core to ephilism, is what Emendham calls the burden of intelligence, which equals a responsibility, like an intrinsic responsibility we have to help not just humans, but all of the animals, all the sentient animals.
using the term responsibility instead of obligation or duty or positive duty is, I wonder if they're all synonymous or if there's like a nuanced issue there. Because you could say something's, you're responsible, but that it would be good, but do you have a duty to do that? I don't know.
This is what Daniel Dennett calls adipity. It's a statement that appears profound, but on closer inspection is actually trivial and meaningless. Burden of intelligence is just a fancy way of saying can implies ought.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of sound that way. I will say this, to, again, steelman their view. They're talking about a normative ethics disagreement in philosophy already when it comes to this whole discussion about the difference between allowing harms and doing harms. And that is a debate, that is a discussion. I don't think we'll see that discussion happen in antinatalism spheres. But maybe I'm too pessimistic about pessimists.
No, it doesn't. Capacity for doing something does not automatically lead to any duty to do it. Also keep in mind that we're all non-voluntary members of the human species. Not one of us deliberately and voluntarily agreed or consented to being burdened with human traits. And this means that obligation...
This I do have to think about some more, about the nature of positive duties. Because even if you're put into a position that you didn't agree with, I think you still have obligations depending on the structure of the environment or the ethical conundrum that you're in. I would need to evaluate this with specific examples or hypotheticals but I will think about that some more for tomorrow.
Can't be derived from them. Traits and voluntarily agreed or not one of us deliberately and voluntarily agreed or consented to being burdened with human traits. And this means that obligations can't be derived from them.
So I'll just speak off the cuff. Like, my brain right now intuitively is saying, well, I didn't consent or agree to living in this society, but there are societal expectations and obligations and legal duties that I have to go by. And you could extrapolate some of those possibly into moral or ethical. So I don't know if that is the case, but I'm not 100% confident to... That's just a thought. I don't really have an argument or counter-argument.
The most we can say is that intervention can be an ethically preferable course of action. Absolutely no problem with that, that's fine. Different people are predisposed towards fixing different problems. If you want to help wild animals, have at it. But nobody's obligated.
Okay, so reviewing this is interesting because I'm making commentary that Steve just continues to just like extrapolate on, which is interesting. I like that this is happening because it means that I'm on the same wavelength as Steve and I'm not... We've had discussions before where I felt like it was going nowhere and it was kind of hard on it. I find it very difficult when I can't see the other person's point of view because I'm like, shoot, this is a topic that I think is important, but I just can't see where you're getting at. So far, I feel like I have a decent... I kind of see his epistemological method for evaluating this stuff. So I think my confidence interval is kind of like at a comfortable level. Anyways, I'm going to catch up on chat. Hello, everybody. And let's see. What are you guys chatting about? So anything to do with animal... sorry, Mark. I addressed Lenny. Oh, yeah, okay, that's fair. I never claimed that addressing animal suffering was bad. I guess that's related to the person in chat. My bad. Did you mean Steve? I merely praised Mark's patience and good faith approach to dealing with potentially dangerous amateur philosophy on the internet. Thank you. That was about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. No, I think it was about a year ago. I don't know if I still have that patience now. But we'll see. I mean, I hope I can continue that. Well, if you can help someone, like, okay, I know where that's going. All right.
I'm going to close out this section by saying something about the inordinate focus on wild animal suffering. I can't shake the impression that ethicists and so...
Okay, before he goes down the crapping on ethicists and some of the meta stuff, let me read the note first. Okay. Note 5. Lawrence Anton is proving my hunch correct by trying to persuade antinatalists to prioritize animal suffering. And by becoming a proponent of the ecological niche replacement argument. Something that I like to point out, he used to be a little bit more convinced by that argument, but I'd say last time I talked to him, he's less convinced by that. And he said to watch one of his videos, I forgot the title of it, but it was like the one talking about Magnus Viting, where... and maybe that doesn't help if there's multiple videos, but it was the thumbnail was like you know what, let me just look it up. Actually no, okay, the point is I think he's changed his views on that, and anyway, I think he thinks there's an alternative, and I'm going to butcher his view here, but I remember in that video it was the ecological niche replacement argument can potentially offset some suffering, or sorry, not offset, like reduce suffering, but continuing the human, like expanding human populations can also be an S risk or a X risk. And if you don't really have a model to calculate the probability of either, now you're kind of saying, like it could be just as bad to bring even incredible amounts of suffering or even an existential threat by doing this action, so that either he's in the agnostic stance or no longer agrees with them. But I know his views have changed on that particular argument, and it's kind of how I talk about the red button. I'm like, well, what about the yellow button? What about the green button? We have other alternatives to address this problem. But so for me, emotionally, practically, I think this is like sci-fi shit, but I think is just as probable, unless you can show me the empirical data to justify your probability and your confidence in whatever solution that or whatever method that you're talking about. And I think the ecological niche replacement argument and the risks involved with that has not been demonstrated by the empirics. Yeah, anyway. A pro-natalist agenda. I don't like that term. Now we're going into a little bit of speculation, I mean, which is fine, but like suspicion, and it's kind of like saying there's Lawrence has an agenda, and I think he's I think he's just like figuring it out as he goes along, which I'm doing too. The more I read, the more papers I read, the videos that I'm watching, I change my views. Thanks to this discourse, and because I used to call myself a sentiocentric antinatalist. Did I have an agenda? No, that was just one of my beliefs. Do I call myself that now? No, I no longer call myself that. I haven't found a specific term for this, but people change their beliefs or they change their labels. I am on the fence about giving people the benefit of the doubt because there have been bad players in antinatalism circles, so I very, very much sympathize with keeping a very skeptical look at people, particularly in this world or the sphere of the internet. But what I would say is that saying someone has an agenda, which is what people levy at you, that you have you want to destroy, because you criticize so many antinatalists that it appears like you're just trying to break, I don't know what the right word would be, break it down or just destroy it. So maybe you're a pro-natalist trying to infiltrate antinatalism, and maybe that's your agenda by making constant videos or commentary on other antinatalists, not just the F-list world. I'm not saying I agree with that, for the record. I know you care about this stuff, Steve, and you've convinced me of that, because here's the odd thing. I actually don't care that much about this particular world. What I care about is the philosophy and the literature. That's my passion in all of this. When it comes to the movement or the social whatever, wherever it wants to go, let it, whatever. I don't care. It could do its own thing. I would hope that it doesn't get more darker or more dangerous. I really hope that's not the case, but I'm not invested in, that thing. I can just simply say, you know what? I was part of this little niche on the internet, and I know I'm no longer I'm no longer there. I don't even have to use the word antinatalism anymore. I'm not beholden onto this term. I could just say, you know what? I'm interested in population ethics. I'm interested in bioethics, and I'm interested in, I could even say, just say creation ethics, and just skirt the whole thing. But I'm just saying someone could speculate on agendas just the same, and just to be careful with that. All right, let me play this without...
Have at it, but nobody's obligated. I'm going to close out this section by saying something about the inordinate focus on wild animal suffering. I can't shake...
And just one quick thing. If you understand someone having a normative view of consequentialism, and you're surrounded by effective altruism as your environment that you're exploring these ideas in, it a lot of this makes sense. I just think it's a byproduct, an emergence of the knowledge or the environment, the philosophical environment that you're in.
The impression that ethalists and so-called sentiocentric antinatalists are generally more concerned with animals than with people, to the extent that caring more about people is perceived as some kind of moral failing, and even that people are disposable when it comes to helping animals. I can't put my finger on it, but there's just something really off about that.
Okay, I can sympathize with that. You will probably notice that there's a lot of vocal vegans who are also antinatalists. However, if you look at surveys and polls done in antinatalism communities, they tend to be the minority. So this is an issue of the squeaky wheel gets the oil, where people perceive a lot of antinatalists as vegans, but that's not necessarily the case. I think if you talk to a lot of vegans, it's kind of easier to make the case for well, at least for me, anecdotally. But if there is that animal rights contingent within antinatalism, and much more active in commentary, then I can see a suspicion about valuing non-human animals compared to animals. Oh, great. One sec. All right, I have someone at the door, so I'm going on a break real quick, and I'll be right back. And I'll play the video again from the start. I'll be right back, everyone.
In and of itself. Benatar's conclusion that coming into existence is always a serious harm doesn't define antinatalism for me. It's just that I see it as a stepping stone towards the definition rather than the definition itself. In order to make it easier to follow my working, I'm restating the principle as an imperative to make the subject X explicit. It is unconditionally unethical for X to procreate. From here, we need to clarify X and procreate. The only way the statement can make sense is for X to be a moral agent with capacity to refrain from procreation in accordance with an ethical imperative. To the best of our knowledge, only humans have this capacity. Therefore, X only includes humans and excludes animals. And therefore, antinatalism only includes humans and excludes animals. So, straight out of the gate, we can already conclude that antinatalism only includes humans. We can therefore write the imperative as the assertion that it is unconditionally unethical for humans to procreate. Alright, let's move on. Procreate. Merriam-Webster defines to procreate as to beget or bring forth offspring. The only way to interpret this without mutilating the language is that it refers to same-species reproduction. There's no other way to read it. It would be nonsense to interpret this definition as saying humans begetting or bringing forth non-human offspring. Okay, so this confirms that antinatalism is solely concerned with same-species reproduction. And I've got one more reason to round out a trifecta. Although antinatalism is a newly minted term, there is what might be loosely referred to as the antinatalism canon. Ken Coates and Katerina Lochmanova's books are probably the best resources for anyone interested in exploring this. One constant down through the millennia, at least as far as I can tell, has been the presumption that the idea is restricted to human procreation. Now, of course, I may be incorrect on this because I can't claim to have read every single thing ever written on the subject. There might very well be examples where the ethics of animals being brought into existence was discussed under the antinatalism rubric. I am confident, however, that in the broader context of the millennia-long discourse...
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know. Okay. I had someone at the door, but they're gone now. They're just checking things for the apartment, and yeah, wasn't expecting that. All right, so shoot. Where did I leave off? Right, he was talking about okay, so the last comment that I was making was that I can sympathize with suspicion about animals, non-human animals, like being prioritized more than human animals, given the different ideologies and how they sort of overlap in terms of community, of what's in the community currently. So I don't know if I had any other comments on that. Let's go forward. It's kind of shook me on my train of thought. So let's just keep going.
That's fine. Different people are predisposed towards fixing different problems. If you want to help wild animals, have at it. But nobody's obligated. I'm going to close out this section by saying something about the inordinate focus on wild animal suffering.
I want to catch up on chat. You guys are pretty active. All right, where are we here? Lenny. Okay, and then right, Mark himself from Lenny. Mark himself uploaded a video where he reads out an essay explaining why we should talking about these colorful button thought experiments. Oh, should stop talking about. Yeah, I did do that, and actually got shared a bit at the time when I did that. Maybe I struggled reading that paper just because I was so new, and maybe I should reread that article and have a more polished video on that. I don't know what use that would be, but I'm gonna write that down. Maybe that's something I want to do again. Idea. Revamp old article video from Andreas. One, I don't know. Two, I wasn't talking about such a button. Steve might as well be talking about the places, those things where animals presses a button. Okay, anyway, let's go back to the video.
I can't shake the impression that ethicists and so-called sentiocentric antinatalists are generally more concerned with animals than with people, to the extent that caring...
In my defense, because I'm saying that I'm not going to use the label of sentiocentric antinatalism, I don't have a non-human supremacy bias here. I think maybe, and I think I've talked to Steve about this, I think there's a potential utilitarian calculus that could be made that even if you value one life over the other, the fact that, like, let's say you put point, and I hate when people do this, but whatever. Hypothetically, if you did this, you put a 0.5 value on one animal suffering life. So, and then you say you have a 1 value for one human life, right? But the very fact that they, in certain environments, you could say that, well, just given the numbers of how many they are, this outweighs the individual value of each human. So, and I think maybe Brian Tomasic or other people have argued this when it comes to insect potential suffering. That is just insurmountable, the amount that's happening there. That's the best way I could steelman the position possibly. But anyway, individually, for me, taking animals into account, I'm not doing that. Just want to clarify that. Chat. What's chat up to? Okay.
More about people is perceived as some kind of moral failing, and even that people are disposable when it comes to helping animals. I can't put my finger on it, but there's just something really off about that. Where do you branch off?
And to actually clarify that a little bit more, while I will say that there's differences with animals and including human animals, that we are moral agents, I'm also not doing a human superiority thing either. I'm just saying that when we have considerations for like the ethics of generating or creating into existence, that we take that all into account. So it's like a level playing field, so to speak. But I am saying that there is a difference for moral agency. But that's not saying higher or lower, so to speak.
And why? Well, as I've already said, I don't consider Benatar's statement, coming into existence is always a serious harm, to be the definition of antinatalism. As for the substance of the statement, I disagree that coming into existence is always a serious harm. All it takes to refute that is...
Lenny, damn, I wish we had Brian Tomasic emote here. You know, I think I have to reach 1,000 subscribers to actually get customized emotes. I'm not too sure about that. I just realized that my community tab opened up, and that's pretty cool. I don't know when that came about, but if I can have my own custom emotes, that'd be cool. I might look into that.
Finding one person who's glad to have been brought into existence and who doesn't consider that existence necessarily means suffering serious harms. And such people do exist. I reckon Benatar overplayed his hand here. But the quandary is that if he only went as far as saying come...
I think your debunk on the quality of life argument was kind of... That was a bit... Like, I have my suspicions about the quality of life argument, but not to the extent that someone believes they're in a happy life. I don't think that just debunks it right away.
...is always a serious harm. All it takes to refute that is finding one person who's glad to have been brought into existence.
No, I think I disagree with this statement, because you could just say that they believe that they were brought into existence, but they could be wrong in their evaluation if they think about it more deeply. They could be misunderstanding the claim. They could be not evaluating it objectively. It could be the case that it is a serious harm. They're just not aware of it. A type of blind spot, which I think is argued in the book and what some ANs are saying too. So I don't know if this is a good refutation of that, or I have a suspicion about. Like I don't think it's as easy. But anyways, that's my initial reaction right now.
And who doesn't consider that existence necessarily means suffering serious harms. And such people do exist. I reckon Benatar overplayed his hand here. But the quandary is that if he only went as far as saying coming into existence is always a harm, without the serious qualifier, that would make it far more difficult for him to make his case that it's better to not be brought into existence.
Yeah, and he kind of says that in the book, which is why, like, the quality of life argument is made.
But it would be wrong to interpret any of this as me being dismissive of Benatar's contributions. His contributions are going to always stand out as some of the most integral parts of the conversation. I assume that you're closer to Cabrera on this. Yeah, I'm definitely closer to Cabrera than Benatar when it comes to including animals in antinatalism, for the simple reason that Cabrera also thinks they aren't, although he arrives at that conclusion by more sophisticated routes.
I was just going to say, I think you might disagree with him on some of his metaphysical or ontological claims. I can't re-articulate what his views are specifically. I think it's in one of his papers. I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, I might make a note of that to review Cabrera and animals. I remember he brought up like Schopenhauer and stuff like that with regards to animals.
Namely that animals don't have moral impediment, and they have ontologically different ways of being. Speaking...
Oh, yeah. He does say that. So, like, do you agree with that? I don't know. You just said what he said. Do you agree with it?
I assume that you're closer to Cabrera on this. Yeah, I'm definitely closer to Cabrera than Benatar when it comes to including animals in antinatalism, for the simple reason that Cabrera also thinks they aren't, although he arrives at that conclusion by more sophisticated routes, namely that animals don't have moral impediment, and they have ontologically different ways of being. Speaking more generally, I reckon Cabrera is by... Cabrera also thinks they aren't, although he arrives at that conclusion by more sophisticated routes, namely that animals don't have moral impediment, and they have ontologically different ways of being.
Yeah, I'd be curious what you think, Steve, if you're saying this. Or maybe I'll just ask him. Ask Steve about ontological claims that Cabrera makes. Okay.
Speaking more generally, I reckon Cabrera is by far the most important contemporary antinatalism philosopher. I reckon Cabrera is by far the most important contemporary antinatalism.
The most important? Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but I think that he is one of the important philosophers to study within antinatalism. And I think that him and Karima Kerma and a few others, like Schifrin, even though Schifrin doesn't write that much about it now, and also Ashil Singh. I don't really have a comprehensive list, but definitely there are thinkers within antinatalism that are just kind of they're not having their spotlight, or they're kind of getting ignored, and I think that's quite a shame, unfortunately.
Philosopher. And his critique of affirmative morality is arguably the most important affirmative. Speaking more generally, I reckon Cabrera is by far the most important contemporary antinatalism philosopher. And his critique of affirmative morality is arguably the most important work.
Okay, so my only caveat, my only comment on this is that I would agree that his book and as a philosopher, yes, very important. Would I say the most important? That might be going a little too strong for me, but yeah, I agreed how it's important.
It can be tough reading because the English translation is awkward in parts, but I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, so it's not just the translation, that it's also a style of philosophy that if you're used to the analytic Anglo tradition, it may be a bit of a struggle. It was a struggle for me because the different styles of argumentation and how you lay out certain philosophical concepts are just different. It's just different. And one thing that people who read more continental philosophy, some people have told me, is that they struggle with analytic philosophy. And for me, I find that mind-boggling sometimes, because I find it much more easier. And I don't want to I struggle with both. Okay, I struggle with both academic philosophy in any tradition, and it's not even it's not even those two. There's other schools of style of philosophy that I struggle with it all. But the one that I'm most comfortable with is analytic, and that could be because I'm just used to that, and that's what I suspect the case is. Anyways, I'm just adding another layer to the potential roadblock for people reading this particular book with Cabrera. He does reference a lot of earlier thinkers as well, Schopenhauer, for example, and it's helpful to at least have some idea of the overall narrative to help. And I have a very basic understanding, so I was able to get through this, but it was challenging for me. So I'll just say that. But yeah, definitely an important book. Please read it, everybody, and I should reread it too.
Negative ethics and moral disqualification. These ideas are nothing less than revolutionary existential level.
Oh, I just saw the chat. All right, Mark, I gotta go soon. We'll catch up later. Thanks, Lenny. Hope you have a good day, and yeah, we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Threats against mainstream philosophy. With his critique, Cabrera fired trench mortars into the barracks of mainstream philosophers and stood outside less level ideas enough. but I can't recommend it enough. Negative ethics and moral disqualification. These ideas are nothing less than revolutionary existential level threats against mainstream philosophy. With his critique, Cabrera fired trench mortars into the barracks of mainstream philosophers and stood outside taunting them.
This is colorful language. Okay.
Do you like apples?
Yeah.
I like them apples.
Okay, that was a good setup, Steve. Okay. I mean, he's written about it, you know, and he does critique. Anyways. Okay, that was funny.
But
You like
Cabrera fired trench mortars into the barracks of mainstream philosophers.
Like, it's just using that word that I was like, oh, where's he going with this? But anyway, yeah, that's funny.
And stood outside taunting them.
Do you like apples?
Yeah.
How do you like them apples?
That's a good one.
So, I don't understand why it's controversial to assert that antinatalism doesn't include animals. Because that's the default position. I've yet to encounter any...
Okay, so here's where I would push back a little bit, and I'll make a note of that. Using the term the, he didn't even say the definition. He's saying, hold on, let me use this word.
Controversial to assert that antinatalism doesn't include animals. Because that's the default position. I've yet to encounter anything that would compel me to agree. Controversial to... I don't understand why it's controversial to assert that antinatalism doesn't include animals.
Okay, so this is where this is really about how you're defining antinatalism. And so I think that when people are saying antinatalism includes animals or antinatalism excludes animals, I liked what you said earlier in the video that said, according to this definition, it would exclude animals. And I would agree with you. What I have a problem with this discourse is when one person's saying antinatalism as like a type of Platonic term includes or excludes. It's how we are defining it and what are we accepting as the main definition. So while I agree with your formulation of the definition at the start, my only point of contention is the word procreation, and that's something that I'd like to explore more tomorrow. And if tomorrow doesn't happen, something comes up, like at least that's a topic that I'm going to explore a little bit more for myself. Because of what I said earlier in the video. Anyway. Actually, now I want to clarify it. So it's just because I think some people are saying, like I've seen commentary on co-creation. It's unethical to co-create. And for the way that I've been using it, I says it's unethical to either generate or create into existence. And I think that this term, you know, obviously you made a whole video of why, like, using that particular term will not include animals. And if that is the definition you're working with, I agree with you and I understand your reasoning behind it. So, or I'm more confident that I understand now. I may have some misunderstandings, but we'll hash that out later.
Because that's the default position. I've yet to encounter anything that would compel me to agree that animals have to be included.
Okay, now I understand why I got the thing. When you said the...
I've yet to encounter anything that would... controversial to assert that antinatalism doesn't include animals. because that's the default position.
That is where, yeah, that is the default position. I don't know if that's the case, because obviously in certain spaces that's not the default position. That they could be, there could be a problem with people using different definitions to assert that's the default position. It depends on the space that you're in, I guess. In the overall literature, I'm not too sure. I think that historically, yes. So I don't have a strong position on this, but I feel like when it comes to definitions and default positions, that can shift over time, and I'm just open to that. So
I've yet to encounter anything that would compel me to agree that animals have to be included.
So just
I think he has said that Halleck has a potential case for that.
lay out the argument for antinatalism. Make the case for us at the outset here.
Well, perhaps I should clarify what the view is first. So,
All right, let's see the notes. Here are some examples of David Benatar defining antinatalism.
it's the view that we ought not to bring new people into existence, but I think the view is broader that we ought not to bring new sentient beings into existence.
Yeah, so okay, that's including the animals.
Right.
So it's not just the view that it's harmful to come into existence, but a further view that it's also wrong to bring beings into existence. There are obviously different ways of understanding what one means by antinatalism. I understand it as the view.
Oh, I see what Steve is highlighting there. He's saying that as a evaluative statement, it's
wrong to bring beings into existence.
No. Benatar is saying it's wrong, not just it's a serious harm. He's making an ethical claim here.
There are obviously different ways of understanding what one means by antinatalism. I understand it as the view that we ought not to be creating new sentient beings.
What is antinatalism and how did you arrive at this position?
Well, antinatalism can be understood.
Okay. The note says he makes a normative claim. That's fair, yeah. That includes moral agents creating moral patients. All right. That's what I'm reading into this.
In a variety of different ways, but broadly speaking, it's an opposition to bringing new beings into existence. That would apply to humans, but
yeah. So animals that humans cause to come into existence. Yeah, that's pretty on par with what my view is too.
it would also apply to animals by breeding them, for example.
So the view is called antinatalism, and maybe you could explain what the view is.
But if he means a normative prescription, which appears to be the case.
Well, as the name suggests,
I've yet to see the step-by-step
it's the view that we
reasoning.
ought not to bring new beings into existence, more specifically, more
For him or anyone else.
sentient beings. And I suppose the most controversial instance of that would be
Justifying such a determination. That's fair. I personally don't have a step-by-step argument myself. This is just I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of like what I would positively assert, because I still have to flesh out some of it. The way that I see it is that I don't see I guess I'll just say my opinion. Moral agents, are kind of, for now, restricted to humans, but moral patients or morally relevant persons, when it comes to personhood status, morally, I don't think is restricted to humans. And that's, if there's arguments saying that moral agents should not be creating moral patients, I would just say that personhood status is something that would be defended from from other arguments. So you would have to couple personhood into this overall discourse, which I mean, I haven't really made a video on. I think Sophie-philia may have made it. I'm pretty sure Sophie-philia, I'm probably mispronouncing the channel's name wrong. I forgot his name. The person that Lawrence had on the abortion debate or discussion. I think he talked about that in one of his videos. I could look it up after this. We'll see.
New human beings.
Mm-hmm. And so the view is that it's better to not bring. I mean, so how would you say it's just preferable to not bring new life in, or is it that it's better to not bring? I mean, so how would you say
okay,
it's just preferable?
Sorry for rewinding it so much. I just
Bring new beings into existence.
trying to read the note, and it's hard when it scrolls like that.
More specifically, more sentient. Being. And I suppose the most controversial instance of that would be new human beings.
Mm-hmm. And so the view is that it's better to not bring. I mean, so how would you?
Simply declaring something to be the case doesn't make it so. Yeah, that's fair.
Preferable to not bring new life in, or is it like there's a strong obligation that it's always morally wrong? Are there any circumstances which you?
Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Okay. I mean, yeah, I get. That was an interesting saying to apply to this, but I understand the criticism.
Say that it was right?
And to be fair, I don't recall having a fleshed out argumentation, at least within like any book that I've read. I may have come across it in some papers, but I'd have to review that. You know what? I'll make a note of that. Review if animals in papers. Yeah, it's kind of like just assumed without actually showing the step-by-step steps. So like I agree with that. Or like I'm not aware of it right now.
I think it's in practice always morally wrong. In the book in which I outlined these views, Better Never to Have Been, I did consider the possibility of fate.
Oh, yeah, that's a good note. And I wish you. Okay, anyway. But it's worth noting that he doesn't mention wild animal interventions. Wild animal intervention. Agreed. So this is a frustration that I've had whenever I use the term sentiocentric antinatalism, that some people assumed that meant wild animal suffering intervention. It did not. And I think that whenever I had the topic of discussion, I would frame it as it would be good if we did some interventions, like very marginal ones, because it would be supererogatory. It would be just, but that didn't mean I was arguing that there's a duty, there's a positive obligation. I think this is what I appreciate with this whole discourse, is that I didn't understand why people were misunderstanding me, but now I get it. I feel bad that I didn't get it at the time, because I thought I was being very specific with ethical evaluations coming from moral agents and the actions that they do. I thought like I would just worked on that assumption, and that may have been a bad assumption to hold at the time. But anyways.
Of phased extinction.
Mm-hmm.
And then looked at that from the perspective of different theories to see whether they would allow it or not.
He only references a negative duty to refrain from
In the earlier arguments.
From bringing into existence.
Some of those theories might allow a phased extinction, and that would mean some limited reproduction in order to phase out humanity. But in practice, I don't think that any reproduction is justified.
Oh, is that it? Kind of ended abruptly. Let me just...
Then looked at that.
And how did you arrive at this position?
Well, antinatalism can be understood in a variety of different ways, but broadly speaking, it's an opposition to bringing new beings into existence. That would apply to humans, but it would also apply to animals by breeding them, for example.
So the view's called antinatalism. Maybe you could explain what the view is for us.
Well, as the name suggests, it's the view that we ought not to bring new beings into existence, more specifically, more sentient beings. And I suppose the most controversial instance of that would be new human beings.
Mm-hmm. And so the view is that it's better to not bring... I mean, so how would you say it's just preferable to not bring new life in, or is it like there's a strong obligation that it's always morally wrong? Are there any circumstances which you'd say that it was right?
I think it's in practice always morally wrong. In the book in which I outlined these views, Better Never to Have Been, I did consider the possibility of phased extinction, and then looked at that from the perspective of different theories to see whether they would allow it or not, given the earlier arguments. And I did suggest that some of those theories might allow a phased extinction, and that would mean some limited reproduction in order to phase out humanity. But in practice, I don't think that any reproduction is justified.
Cool. All right. Well, whoops. I don't know why that. All right. Well, Steve, thank you for linking me this video, and I think I've seen other people comment on it. Yeah, all right. So I was going to review the articles, but I don't think I want to, because I think I have a good understanding of where you're coming from right now, and I don't want to add even more data to confuse myself. So I guess I'll talk about, yeah, hopefully we are either going to do a live stream or a recording, or if it doesn't work out, private convo to talk about this topic. I am hoping another guest will come as well, who holds a more consequentialist view and includes animals into their view of antinatalism. The topics that we're going to, I have a little bit more structure of how to approach this conversation, because I knew that we were going to talk about definitions, but I think one particular area to explore is personhood status, and then are we restricting it to just procreation or co-creation or creation in general, or generating sentient life? And I would agree that I haven't seen a step-by-step argumentation to include that. It's kind of an assumption based on other arguments. And I think, and of course, since we all have different normative views on ethics, that's probably where we're going to have some commentary. I don't think it's going to be a debate. I try not to debate that. I'm like, here's some of my criticisms or arguments in favor of this theory or against this theory. Do with it as you please, and we'll have to, go back and forth depending on our what position we're taking on that. So anyways, I'm pretty sure that's where the conversation's going to go. Oh yeah, and we're going to talk about the ethics of positive duties, I guess. So positive duties, procreation, definition or topic at least. Causing harm and allowing harm, that's going to be a topic as well. And what else is there? I guess that's it. What is or isn't antinatalism? The difference of definitions, the term of procreation, the difference in normative ethics, positive duties, and yeah, okay. I have a good outline. All right. Well, thank you everybody who joined in this live stream. I started this live stream before. I did a little bit of work this morning, but I just I wasn't sure how much energy this was going to take, so I wanted to get this out of the way in preparation for the conversation tomorrow. And I feel more confident approaching this conversation tomorrow, and I don't want to go too down into the weeds when it comes to talking about personalities and speculating on people's agendas and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll just stick to the ideas and the philosophy, and we'll go from there. And I appreciate everybody's commentary and really pushing this topic a little bit more forward. It's always been on my mind, but I haven't really seen too many people have a good faith discussion on it. It's more people saying it does or it doesn't, get out if you don't agree kind of thing. But anyways, I am going to have to think of a new term to use for myself, because I am definitely in agreement that it's about moral agents. Oh yeah, that'll be another topic. Okay. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your day. And stay tuned tomorrow for the next one. I'll hopefully be talking to Steve and another person who's someone else who's a consequentialist, and we'll have hopefully it'll be a useful conversation. I look forward to it, and hashing out my particular views, and maybe I'll come up with a step-by-step justification for including morally relevant persons into my definition of antinatalism. But honestly, if the definition of antinatalism is agreed upon as a default position that it does not include morally relevant persons, I'm okay with abandoning it. I'm not really beholden upon it. I would argue that I wouldn't understand the reasoning for excluding it, but at the same time, it needs to be justified in the first place, either or. So I look forward to engaging in that discourse with all my other interests that I'm into right now. All right, have a good day, everyone, and ciao. Thanks everyone for joining the live stream. This was well attended, even though not many people were in chat. I saw the viewer count, and that was nice to see. Maybe this is a good time to stream. I'll think about that some more.